last meeting of the Saxton Field Committee before the local government elections, so in this triennium. So I'll just ask Andrew to give us a karakia.
Tuia ki ronga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho, tuia tātou te tangata. Ki te kaupapa o te hui nei, ki te kaupapa o te rangi nei. Mauri ora, ki a tātou katoa.
So I'm not sure we've got anybody online, have we? So no, we don't need to run through that. Did you? Okay. Well, Tim will have heard the housekeeping stuff. So just for those who are not familiar with the facilities, fire exits marked. The door came through on the side there. If we need to vacate the chamber, warn you that media is present. So welcome, Tim. And toilet back out in the foyer there for those who are not familiar with who they are. So with no apologies, we've got everybody here. So nobody's registered for a public forum. Any declarations of interest in this meeting? I should probably declare that I was contacted with one of the items on the report in terms of the cross-country course. So I have had some liaison with Phil on that and staff. So I don't propose to vote on that at all. I'll just chair the meeting when we get to that stage. So no late items. There's a few extra late-ish papers, which I hope everybody has now. Well, they'll be covered when we get to those particular items. So we just need the minutes approved from the last meeting, which was on the 14th of May. So somebody like to move and second that they are a true and correct record of that meeting. Campbell and Brent's got his left hand up. Yeah. Thank you. All right, all those in favour, please say aye. Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. So we've got quite a full agenda, as you probably realise. So and several presentations. So I'm just going to encourage those who are presenting to perhaps just highlight some points in their report, and then we can move to kind of questions. So first of all, we've got Kumano Environmental, who will be speaking to the community consultation report that's there. So welcome, Will, to that. If you've got access to a thing there, just push the button, which Rob will show you how to operate.
Yeah, all good.
Welcome along.
Tēnā koutou i nā hui whā, kua hui mai nei ki tēnā hui ki te ako i nā kōrero. Ko Will Morrison taku ingoa kei Kumano te taio a hau i mahi ana, hei kai hawa hawa whenua mātua taku mahi. Iki ana te whakatauki, ka whangaia, ka tupu, ka pōwai, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā katoa katoa. Thank you for inviting me along today to speak about the consultation document and I guess the ongoing process we've had with the wider community, schools, and a wide range of organisations around the community. Across all the groups, there's been some really key messages and constant themes coming through around sort of the facilities that they feel are missing within Tasman and Nelson as a whole, and that sort of is quite strongly shown through the consultation and some of the surveys that we've done. So the project vision and I guess the overview for our process was around creating an all-inclusive play space in alignment with the long-term plan for both Saxton and both LTPs. And through that process, we understand a comprehensive understanding of sort of what the community is after within that facility. There we go. Early on in the process, we've undertaken some sort of consultation with the various iwi. We have got another round of hui coming up later this month to sort of get more cultural messaging and that sort of stuff in throughout the document and create that final brief. But the main messages to date from local iwi is around enhancing the environment and tying it back to its space. So tying into what would have been there historically vegetatively, and also talk back to the pūrākau that have well known and across all the 8 iwi. From a community perspective, the main aspiration is around a safe and inclusive play space. So key messages around that include sort of making sure that it's welcoming for all. It creates it's a secure space. I guess there's a lot of public members that have, for instance, kids that are runners or need sort of that extra security of either a foot fencing or at least a sense of enclosement. Also, the other sort of, I guess, more typical accessibility issues as far as physical disabilities as well. So with that, it's not only about them, but also about their siblings. It's sort of been really clear messaging is that a lot of these play spaces typically cater just for those with a disability or those without, and there's nothing that actually a whole family can come together. So that's sort of the key messages that have sort of come through from that. That was again sort of reiterated when we met with sort of some of the specialist user groups, some of the learning hubs, and sort of meeting with students with disabilities. And again, the other thing that they kind of pointed was having opportunities for self-regulation and having opportunities where they can be in the thick of it, but also areas that they can sort of recluse and sort of watch from afar. So they, depending on what they're feeling and what they want to do, they've got sort of opportunities and options around that. School group feedback was actually really consistent across all age groups. So we met with every students from 2-year-olds at early childhood centres right up to high school students and various high schools and schools throughout that range. But overall, the theming and the messaging was really similar. Overarchingly, there was a real desire for a immersion style play space, so something with a really strong theming. But also having elements of natural play tied back through it. As far as elements that they wanted to see, the top 3, I guess probably no big surprise, but water play is something that has sort of been highlighted as being lacking in the region. And I know that was sort of something that came up in the main play space for Rutherford as well as climbing, swinging, sliding, and sort of some of those more traditional aspects, but something of a bit more of a larger scale. Outside of the actual play space itself, I guess the biggest interesting thing around it is a huge amount of them actually kind of wanted, I guess, other things that wouldn't be, I guess, typical or what we have been doing, and it was things like making sure we have another toilets and inclusive toilets. We provide bins, recycling and rubbish, which I know is a hot topic for all councils at the moment. And then things like producing areas for games and sport and tying it back into Saxton. So, for instance, they talked about things like table tennis tables or having a basketball hoop or something like that, so they can have those sort of play elements that relate to sport on the periphery and as part of this play space, which allows those older teenager kids to take their younger brother down to the playground. They can do that while they're doing that, and vice versa. So that was sort of quite interesting. We also met with some older adults. So we met with some of the rest homes, including Somerset. And again, their sort of thing was more around practicalities of using the space. So likes of making sure the pathways are all accessible, comfortable curves for using mobility scooters and wheelchairs, and creating also a play space that no matter how old you are, you can still play on. They've got, apparently there's a resident there that's 94 and she's the first one at any opening of any playground in the region. So that's the sort of thing, is that, it's just down the doorstep from a lot of, I think there's about 4 or 5 rest homes within a 5-minute drive of this hub. So, and they all currently come in frequent Saxton as a whole currently. So this will definitely be a facility that they would like to see the most of. Like some of the other students, they also wanted to see sort of the inclusion of games and that intergenerational play. So again, table tennis came up, the toying ideas of things like snakes and ladders, or anything like that that multi-generation can involve in. Online survey was a really great success. We had, I think it was about 450 people fill out the survey in a real diverse range of ages. And again, a lot of those comments reacted similar to what the schools had said. So a bit of information around the submitters. Predominantly, they were female, and in sort of that 30 to 60 age groups, that's the majority of the submitters, but we did have a few outliers in amongst that. We asked each surveyor to fill in, what ages were they representing in their feedback. And predominantly it is in that 0 to 12 age group, but there is still some decent numbers as we trail right through to the 60 plus. With those similar rankings and those types that we talked about with the schools, we asked for them to rank their preferred play space style. And when you get into, again, your top choice, the immersion play space does lead out quite strongly. Again, I guess like a traditional play space and natural play spaces are sort of coming in behind that. So again, really similar to what we sort of saw from the schools. When we get into play elements, it's again more similar, but water play drops down a little bit. It's sort of down to about the third highest ranking when you get into the survey, with the climbing and the swing and sliding being the main priority. The interesting thing with that is if people didn't put water play as their first choice, it was in their bottom three. So when they ranked them, so they were always, it was one of those things that was either right at the top or right at the bottom. But fully ranked, it does still come up quite high. As far as the landscape elements, the fencing was very strong, as you can see there. 43% of everyone that filled out the survey wanted a fully fenced, fully enclosed play space as their most important landscape feature. Followed behind by things like seating and shade. So a lot of the things that are typical when we talk about play spaces, but the fencing and how important that is. And again, this one kind of it was similar to the water play in the fact that it was, first for 43% of people, but for about 40% of people, it was in their bottom three as well. So it was either really pertinent to a big chunk of our population, or it was sort of fell down the wayside a little bit. I guess in conclusion, well, firstly, I want to thank all the schools and organisations and people that gave their time to give us this information. And they were all very forthcoming with everything, and they all felt that the process was very positive, and they felt very enlightened by their inclusion. And with that, it has given us a bit of a clear brief on the fact that they want that inclusive space. They want some aspect of water play. They want elements to climb. They want elements to sort of recluse. So we've got some really clear direction now on what that play space should look like, and I guess a really good opportunity on how this could be staged if we go outside the current project budget, especially when we start talking about if we're going to provide another public toilet or something like that. That's obviously going to have to sit outside what we've currently got as a project budget. So those sorts of things, we can sort of look at quite a good long-term plan around how we fit that together, or how the project could be staged over time. Any questions?
Thanks for that, Will. Good, concise summary. So questions from Councillor Tim?
Thank you. Quickly on that. Fencing, what was the reasoning people wanting fencing around the playground? The ones that did.
So the main reason for people wanting fencing is people with neurodivergent children and whatnot, they tend to run. They don't have any sense of security or of safety with the road and whatnot. Okay. So if it means that at the moment, if they go to a play space that's not fenced, they can only take one child, which means that if they've got 2 or 3 kids, they don't leave their house. Okay. So.
Anybody else?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just in terms of design and the stage design for future budgets, what is the budget that you're currently working on?
That one for Rob.
Off the top of my head, Councillor Mario, I think it's 1.45 million.
And have we factored in any funding externally that we might be able to add to that pot in terms of, so I'm a little bit heartened to hear that there'll be a stage and there'll be more than we can afford anyway, but I just don't want to limit our dreaming and our opportunities to our council budget if there's some external funders that may help make stage one even better.
Yeah, I guess that's definitely something that we have thought about, and I guess once we get further down the process, we can look at that further. I know one of the ones that came from one of the community organisations was, for instance, for the public toilets. There's I can't think of the exact charity off the top of my head, but the one that did the Magic Playground in Hamilton, that toilet, that was funded by an external charity. So I guess there, when I say outside stage one, I'm thinking of the council budget. But there would definitely be, I think, a strong desire to look to external partners to get through some of those later stages and combine them all into one.
Anybody else? Jo?
Thank you. Love to see this on the agenda. It just shows, I've actually been so blown away by when we first talked about repurposing the original budget into this. I had no idea how the community would grab onto it and actually express how desperate they were to have something like this. And so I really appreciate the community groups that have fed into this process, and I also appreciate the opportunity that I've had to sit in on one of those. As part of the consultation and the particular visit that I did, there was some talk about what was needed on the outskirts of that playground and some of the risks that were involved with the roading, toilets, and some of the needs that are in there that aren't included in the playground budget. Has that all been captured so that we can build those into budgets in the Saxton Field area?
Yes, it's been captured within the consultation, and it would definitely be something that would be considered as part of the design. So again, I guess some of those things that we talked about were things like level crossings or pedestrian crossings to link through to the toilets, through to the velodrome, and sort of speed reducing mechanisms were sort of some of the main ones. The other one is around the current, I guess, roading infrastructure and the curb and channel, and how we need to sort of make that so it is wheelchair friendly and scooter friendly. So yes, that has all been included, and that would include in the wider concept or draft concept for that.
Thanks so much, Phil. I'm loving this project. It's fantastic, and thanks for bringing it to us today.
Campbell?
Thanks, Derek. And this is my second round of questions. I got to ask them at RAF just the other week. Thank you, Will. My question to you is around the fencing, and we had quite a strong presentation and feedback from those looking at the Rutherford play space, and it was quite essentially it was such a good story that you couldn't avoid it. Is the fencing a definite for this area, or is it still something that you're planning with but may not be there when the design's done?
I think that's got to be a critical element.
Yeah, from my sort of take of the consultation, I think it's a must include. Where there's some areas of lower risk, it might be that it has a perceived level of fencing where it might be achieved in other ways, but it still has that perceived barrier. But a majority of the playground would need to be properly fenced, and it definitely is when you get 43% of the feedback, it's a very strong mandate.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's no further questions, thank you very much, Will, for that presentation. I presume the next steps is this concept planned, and will there be opportunities for people to see that and input feedback, provide feedback on that?
Yeah, so the next step is following the next round of iwi consultation. There'll be an initial concept which goes out for feedback, and that provides the brief for the construction or tender documentation going forward.
And if I may, I'd just like to thank Will for the great work that he's done.
Yep. The committee would concur with that. Thank you. So, and it's been a regular topic of discussion. So having been seeing this stage one come to the committee is good. So thank you. I understand that's just for our information, so we don't need to formally receive the report or anything. So we can then move on to the next item on the agenda, which is activities report. So I thought in this case we might invite the two CLM people forward to talk about your report. So Mark and James, you want to come forward to push the buttons on these speaking devices in front of you there. So welcome along.
Thank you very much for having us today. For those who don't know me, I'm James. I've been the facility manager now for circa 1 year. For those who do know me, apologies. We've had a really, really good introduction to Saxton. Our first year taking over the contract. The introduction of our cafe has given us fantastic feedback where people can be hydrated. Introduction of food, so people are well nourished. We've had we brought in $403,850 to the council through proper invoicing, which is the 108,000 uplift in our first year. So obviously we want to try and continue that in our growth. We had a KPI of 2,500 hours for bookings. I'm glad to say that we got 3,395 hours booked in for our first year. Introduction of pickleball, a new sport which we've now brought to the stadium. Quite a slow start, if I'm honest. I'd like to have got a bit bigger, but we are now seeing more regular customers coming back to the stadium. That is a 26.3% increase in total hours booked from our previous year. So some real good wins there. One thing we did notice and feedback was the cleanliness of the stadium. We've worked really hard in making sure that now that's updated every night. 4 hours of our contract and cleaning team. Our mezzanine has just been polished, so we keep on top of that now, so it gives more of a classier finish. The black caps, we've had some real good feedback from New Zealand Cricket saying that Saxton Oval is one of their favoured locations. So I'm really happy to have that relationship with New Zealand Cricket now. They took us out for a meal last week, which was nice. They got me a pint, and they just said that the Oval was in a really good place right now, and the cleanliness of it and the way it was facilitated during the White Ferns and the Black Caps was fantastic. So that's some real nice feedback, which I'm really delighted to hear. Our Saxton senior group, which runs on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we continued from Sport Tasman. We have continued to grow numbers. Introduction of quizzes during the week just keeps them on the site and make sure that they're all having fun. So we're really delighted with how the first year has been. If you guys got any questions, I'd be more than happy to try and answer it for you. I'm not one for public speaking, by the way. I'll do a quiz on a Tuesday after a few pints, so apologies, I'm a little bit nervous. Excellent, thank you very much. Very joking.
Did you want to make any comments? Cool.
Oh, just a comment. Great to hear the cricket oval, because it's a real jewel in this area.
I'm happy not to get the White Ferns back, but we're working on it.
Yep. And anything else? I know it's always a work in progress like anything, and it's gone leaps and bounds, and we obviously had a nervous period last year with some of the debate in Austin City Council on the advertising, and been a while since we'd had some of those internationals, but I believe they're back on the calendar. So the question really is, anything we as a governance table, both NCC, TDC, can champion to take it even further or to make good of our strengths?
I think one of the key things that I've seen, and I think is worth highlighting, is that if everyone's familiar, New Zealand Cricket have, from what I understand, recently been going through their venues feasibility assessments and essentially making their venues reports on what, I guess their future of where they see cricket hosted in New Zealand, and it's our understanding that Saxton is right up there on that. So I guess that's a good thing to note. Like James said, that New Zealand cricket like coming to Saxton. The players love coming to Saxton, which is always a big tick. And we've had good results there. There's been runs in the last 2 games, and the Black Caps have won, which also that goes well on it as well. I guess there's the normal things, and I think New Zealand Cricket and Central District Cricket are talking with the council representatives about it around the I guess some of the infrastructure that's on site. But I guess that's probably not for us to speak to so much, because I guess those conversations with New Zealand Cricket and Central Districts Cricket are ongoing. So I guess the key would be just to be speaking to your officers on those conversations that New Zealand Cricket are having with them.
And through Chair, just a follow-up one there, in regards to televising the matches. I know in the past we've had Sky, and then it's gone back to what was Telecom. How we there with infrastructure there for televising? It's changed a bit. We need a tower, but we didn't. Now we do. Are we on track for that?
I'd say we can't answer that. Sorry, those are not, like, I guess we're in the last year we've been involved in, I guess, delivering the event, but I guess any of those infrastructure conversations have been happening directly with council officers. So,
I understand.
So, I mean, obviously they are temporary at the moment. So I wouldn't be able to tell you whether the call from the broadcasters is to have permanent infrastructure or not. That those conversations.
And you guys have manned some of those towers. Have you found those good? They work right?
I haven't climbed up them.
Okay.
I'm scared of heights.
Okay, cheers. Thank you. That's all from me.
On this side, Brent, you've got one.
Thank you. Thanks, Jared. Thank you, James and Mark. So not only did it present really well, your report's really well to read. So thank you. Short and sharp's awesome. But just congratulations. Your metrics speak for themselves. So well done on first year.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks so much for bringing that. It's a really interesting report to read. What do you see as your biggest challenges moving forward over the next year or two, and where's your focus going to be there?
We've just had a report done regarding our condition of our floor. Our biggest asset on our stadium is, of course, the courts. There is some damage on there. Our basketball hoops can cause some issues because they're bloody heavy. We've got an SOP where 2 of our staff members need to get them out and put them up. It's not just one, so we have some rostering issues at times. We have to make sure that we've got people on site to support the sporting codes. The changeover from, let's say, futsal to basketball can sometimes take an hour just to get the sporting codes in and ready for their bookings. So for me personally, as a challenge, is to make sure that I've got enough staff on site to do those changeovers. So we need to look at that. The basketball hoops is another entity we'll discuss at a later point, I'm sure. But for me, that's probably my hardest challenge, really.
I'd say one of the things that I see, and I guess it's been well publicised lately, is I guess the cost of sports and that's not just limited to people who use Saxton Stadium. That's a general, the cost of sports for young people is getting more and more. It's also well publicised with the TAB pulling back from funding some of those sports organisations. Also, some of those pub charities also becoming harder to access for those sporting groups. So I guess that's vital bit of funding for clubs, RSOs, OSTs, to get that funding. So I guess the key that we'd be trying to work on is, I guess, working with those groups to find out ways that if the funding is dried up, we don't have the funding to provide it, and we still need to, I guess, provide a facility that is returning some income. But I guess, how can we work with them to try and find ways to potentially plug those gaps that if there are any? But yeah, those conversations will be ongoing with different user groups.
Thanks, Mark. Campbell?
Thank you, Jared. Morning, Mark and James. I guess I won't beat around the bush with my question. Probably in the last 12 months, CLM as a brand has been battered quite heavily locally. And that's obviously a discussion other people can raise. How's your perception at 12 months on into Saxton Field been looked at? I guess you guys are on the floor, so you're talking to these people directly. What has your perception of what CLM has changed out there in the public, do you think?
Yeah, thank you. That has been well publicised. I mean, largely, I've spoken at a couple of council things now. I think some of that is largely unfair. I think I can understand why there may have been that commentary, but I think largely the look at CLM has been unfair. That being said, we have also looked inside our organisation locally to find out things that we can do, with through not just Saxton, through all of our sites, being, trying to find different ways to get in behind the community to try and enhance that brand, but also do it in an authentic way so it doesn't look like we're just going, here's some bad media, let's jump in and do a couple of good things to try and change that rhetoric. That's sort of tokenistic and won't last long term. So we have certainly been taking an approach that anything we do needs to be authentic. I guess in terms of Saxton, I guess the key messaging that we don't tell people, but the higher fees are not set by us. So I guess, any complaints from anyone that suggests that CLM has come in and changed anything is I guess just not right. I guess we have been charging the fees that have been approved by council, and that that's all we've ever done. So I guess what we focus on is what we can control, because those things, we don't set the fees, we don't set the charges, we can't control that. So what we can control is the service that we provide to those people who are using the stadium, the people, not just the people that hire it, the people that also then come into the stadium, right? So we have Nelson Basketball running their competition, but we also then have hundreds of people, of their guests, of their members coming to engage in that sport. So I guess what we've tried to focus on is ensuring that all those people, the hirers, the people that visit the stadiums, have a great experience. And then from there, the results will speak for itself. And like James pointed out, the conversations that we've had with hirers, say after a tournament, where it used to be that they had to go to the closest cafe, which was a 10-minute drive or something, to get a coffee. They had to go somewhere to get something to eat. Now have those services on site. It just lifts that experience for the people coming. And, we've had a lot of comments about this. So good I can grab a coffee here. So good I can grab something to eat here without going off site. So I guess those are the controllables that we can. The cleanliness, like James touched on, just lifting that a little bit higher to what those codes would like to see. And that came through highly when we spoke to the codes before the contract actually started and we were awarded it. We specifically listened to them and what they wanted to see, and the cleanliness was certainly something that came up. And when we said that we were looking at putting a kiosk in, then that was certainly something they all supported. So I guess focusing on the things that we can control, which are the deliverables, and making sure everyone has a great experience, is what I believe.
We have just got all our signs updated as well throughout the stadium, which I think brings a real nice touch. Previously, I don't know if you guys were or not, the changing rooms used to be called the banging room because the sea had fallen off and someone had drawn it in. So we made sure we went through everywhere and made sure that now we've got proper signage so people can come in and experience something that's, like I said, like Mark's touched upon, is a bit more professionalism, in my opinion.
Thanks, Cam.
Thank you very much for those questions and your responses. Do you have any comments that you want to make at all, Lynn?
Thank you, Derek. Just that it's been a pleasure working with the CLM Saxton team over the past 12 months, and feels like we've really made some huge differences out there, and very excited for what's to come. Yeah.
So thank you very much for the good work you've done the last 12 months and coming forward. There's a few items in the agenda that you might be interested in, so you're welcome to stay around if you would. The basketball hoops, as you alluded to, was one of those. So
thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh.
It's all related to Nelson City Council. And does that mean that the subsidy that Tasman District Council would have reduced? So the income's up $108,000. will we now be expecting to see less payable expenses from our half of the contract? You don't need to answer now, but if you could let Rob know, that would be really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we'll work our way through pretty much the order of the staff report. So first one for discussion really is the updates on the Saxon Oval media towers. So I think Paul's going to speak to this item a little bit. Update, or Debbie?
Oh, yeah.
Debbie's going to do it. So.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to work through
okay, thanks.
In that
Debbie.
order. First, though, if I could make a correction, I think it said on the author of the report is Rowe from Tasman District Council, but it's actually Paul Harrington and myself, just to be, you know. Right, so going through this report, we thought we'd sort of update from the last Saxton Field committee, and we talked about the Saxon Oval media towers. We haven't got a lot more to update from last time. It's a little bit of a work in progress. We did have a Veros booked to come down and do a site visit just to check out where potentially the towers could go, how that would look, but they got sick, so they couldn't make it, so that's been postponed. So I'm kind of in a sort of ticking away in the background, I suppose, gathering information, and would bring more information back to the committee in the new triennium.
Any committee members on that particular issue? That'll be something that some of you may see after the elections. Hopefully some of you will. Okay. Yep.
In terms of, we've obviously, through the chair, we've obviously got games scheduled for the summer. I assume we'll be looking at the same proposal as last summer of getting the scaffolded towers up and just leaving them up all summer, or will we take them down between games?
The games are back to back. The Black Cat games are November 9th and 10th, I think. So they would probably stay up for that.
Do we leave them up for the first class games as well, or?
Sure.
They're generally organised by the venue hirer. So it would be a discussion between them and any other users. But if New Zealand Cricket had 2 games a month apart, they would probably leave them there, for example. So yeah, that overlay is most likely to be put up for those games.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on that? If not, we can move to the capital project section, the proposed regional skate park. So
yeah, I can talk to that one.
that's gone right.
So following the last meeting, officers had a bit of a discussion around some other areas that could possibly be looked at. So we have been investigating Avery Field, which is a Tasman District Council owned bit of land. So really where that project is at is just in the investigation stage, looking at the suitability of the ground. And I think literally in the last week or two, they've been doing little geotech tests, waiting for the weather to clear up. So that project's just progressing pretty well, and probably have a good update on the likelihood of a location in the next 3 or 4 months. It really also depends on, we just want to be really sure that we can accommodate any displaced games somewhere else. So currently that field is pretty well used for football. Yeah, Rob, feel free to jump in if you've got anything else to add.
The field is pretty well used for football, but there are other places where we can spread football around within the park on the whole. I met with Scout Nelson just a couple of days ago. They were pretty keen on the proposed location in the corner of Avery Field, or the side of Avery Field by the supermarket there.
It is an ideal location for it ticks all the boxes for what an activity like that needs.
Joe?
Thank you for that clarification, and it's great to see this moving forward. I'm just wondering, so we've done consultation with residents in the Saxton area, which has prompted looking at those alternative sites. What sort of, do we see the need for further consultation from people in that area, or is their residential area sufficiently far enough away that we don't need to be doing that, or is it another round of something that we're going to have to look at?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is quite a long way away to the residential and that end. So the consultation that we will do would more be in the form of just informing and just making, hearing people out on any concerns. But it's a very different landscape to the other end where it's heavily residentially owned. So quite different, yeah, more commercial.
Super, thank you.
Let's move to the basketball hoops renewal / upgrade. So Debbie.
Thanks. Right. So one of the actions from the last committee meeting actually was to bring back a report on the condition and assessment of the floor, because we did discuss how that related to the hoop upgrade. So we engaged Hardwood Technology to undertake a floor condition assessment, which was completed in June. The report highlighted that the repeated movement and storage of the heavy portable hoops are causing cracking and damage. And it commented the current maintenance frequency has been insufficient, so it's been resulting in visible paint wear and surface deterioration. And one of the recommendations was replacing the current hoops with wall or ceiling mounted. In terms of the maintenance schedule, the floor itself is due for a maintenance coat, which we are going to do, or it's been booked in for February 2026. And some of the board repairs that are kind of noted to be done will be done locally before that. It's probably a bit far to wait till that when we do the sand. And then it would be due for a hard sand, which is that bit more work involved in January 2029. So that would be the schedule. And then every 3 years after that, it would get that light conditioning coat. So it goes through. So, yeah. Any questions?
Brent? Thanks, Stuart. Can you just point me to the budget line? So there was a new CapEx budget that just came through yesterday. Where's the budget line for the basketball hoop renewal? Did we take it out? Oh, sorry. So not we. Did you guys take it out?
This is okay. Cool. So we have 3 different activity areas for Saxton Field. This is the one for the Saxton Field, and there's another one for Saxton Field Oval, and there's another one for Saxton Field Pavilion. So that one is a renewal line under the Saxton Field Pavilion. So it's not showing on this sheet.
So we have $580,000, 26-27 in budget.
That sounds like it. Yeah, right. I can confirm that.
And that's sort of the scope of that's still the scope of the size of the project that we know of.
Sorry.
And so the budget we currently have is the cost that we are still projecting the project to cost.
Well, when we did that update pricing that we walked the last committee, it came in at 300,000 plus contingency, so it was quite a lot less. Yeah.
And have we had any tests done to say that concrete far wall could actually take the basketball hoops?
The last report that we looked at, they ruled out doing ceiling fans, but that would be the next part. We would do a report on the wall mounted. Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Campbell?
Yeah, thank you. I obviously have a great interest in these basketball hoops. Through the chair, first question is, have we had any discussions with basketball around contributing to these hoops? And the second question is, in terms of moving them to wall mounted, currently they're floor mounted. We're going on a quick tour of Saxton Stadium, and you can actually walk down the laneway beside the hoops while games are getting played currently. Moving them to the wall, is that going to impact on people's access to get to the other end of the stadium while games are getting played if they've got a hoop directly above them through that laneway? Have we been investigating that?
No, well, from other stadiums that have got wall mounted, they sort of they come out, they swing out, so you still have your walkway underneath. Is that what you mean? Like the yeah, they can retract back and then come forward. So the hoop's going to be in the same place as it would be in the portable. So you'd walk behind the portable at the moment. Yeah, the wall, it would be above you, so you could still walk. The hoop's over the court, sorry.
Yeah. So it's not having these bars coming out above the walkway. It's not going to impact causing health and safety issues.
No, they're high up and they retract. They're above your head. They retract over and then they just fold back.
Okay.
So when they're out, you'd have clear walkway. Yeah.
Cool. And have we been having discussion with Nelson Basketball around these new hoops at all, and what that looks like?
Not yet. It's a little bit tied in with the memorandum of understanding. We've kind of, that has just expired, and we are going back for feedback about that, how that might look in the future booking arrangements. So that's the stage where, with discussions with basketball, we haven't got to the stage where we're looking at what kind of contribution they'd make yet.
Yeah, got a question?
Yeah, cheers. That so just on the greater aspect of these hoops, this is obviously something that's come up a number of times in my tenure on council, going back to 2016. Where are we at? I realise we're doing this diligence on reports on the costings and the best form of mounting and the effect on the floors and whether we need or not. This is a decision we've made. We've put it into our long-term plan, but is there another decision point coming up shortly? Is there other decisions we need to make on this? So I guess we're still throwing this idea around. Are we more confirmed on this? Sorry for my ignorance on this, but it's been back and forth prior to committee.
There's not another decision. It's in the long-term plan. It's in next year, year 3. So it's just working towards the project at this point. So we'll just keep the committee updated, and if there's any issues that can be raised at that point.
So what decision points are there coming up in regards to that? There's obviously we're doing a diligence on the best way of mounting it and the condition of the floors and the advantages and disadvantages, etc. And I appreciate what you've come back to on this, keeping us informed. But are you needing some further direction from council?
No, not at this point. Essentially, the budget was just pushed out a year or two. So we're just a lot of design work's already been done, and we're just working towards delivering it.
And through the chair, just
feel a little bit like a broken record on this, but the financial situation of the council, Nelson City Council, and I can't speak on behalf of Tasman District Council, is challenging, and any projects, even if they're in the LTBP, there are provisions for those projects, and they may need to be reconsidered just because of the financial situation of the council.
So through the chair, and just giving my feedback direction officers, I'm fully supportive of these wall-mounted basketball hoops. I'm always concerned about the costs, etc. And good point there, Mr. White, in regards to challenging costs that seem to be growing. I also just give you, I'm always very conscious of every dollar we spend, but on the other side, I've got some heart that this is definitely something I put in the core bracket of council's needs and do's, and also some confidence that we may be pushing back on some of that stuff in regards to non-core. And as you know, there's a lot of things I wouldn't support because I don't believe are core parts of what council to do. And I think we've done too many things, great expense outside of core. I'm not talking about this committee, but I'm talking about councils, Nelson City Council as general. So just giving direction, I'm very supportive on this, and looking at your report in regards to the feedback from Howard Technologies, etc. this is something we need to do sooner than later. So I just want to do anything we can as a governance table to push this along and action this sooner than later rather than delay it any further. The understanding in regards to the memorandum of understanding with what parties need to be involved in funding it. I know in the past, with it being the timer clocks for the basketball, I've pushed back from council and the sporting clubs to fund that. This one, I think, very much part of what council needs to fund. But saying that, there's a lot of sticking point there in regards to MOU, and I see in your report it ended in July 2025. Does that mean we just sort of roll that over, do you think, on what the memorandum of understanding? It's just a case of rubber stamping that and say business as usual, or is this a waypoint where we're going to be reassessing, redeciding who provides what proportion of what? And thank you for your diligence or for your allowance. Next question.
I can
Well, it's in the report. It's in the report here in regards to the MOU, and this directly impacts on that. And then I just pointed in that regards to his clocks, because going back in 2016, I think it was, basketball wanted us to pay for the clocks, and they were quite expensive, nothing to this cost. And I remember pushing back to save every dollar, saying no, as part of a memorandum of understanding, you pay for those. I got a bit of flack from basketball understanding on this. I'm very supportive as one of our assets, but I see this MOU could change, it will be the same, and it may throw a fox in the chickens.
We'll move to the MOU now, just as part of this discussion. So, Debbie, if you want to respond.
Yeah, so as Tim said, the MOU did expire on the 1st of July 2025. So what we're doing is we decided we'd go out and get feedback from those original groups to see where they're at with it. Do they want the same MOU? Do they want an adapted one, a more updated one? Should we go to an allocation agreement like we do in other sports events and facilities that we lease out or hire out? So we're kind of in the stage of getting that feedback from those groups, and then I would say we'd probably bring that back to the committee with maybe a decision whether we want to go an updated version or
Thank you. That just to answer the question, it's probably creates a few more questions, but that will come when it comes back to us. What I'm going to indicate to Mr. Chair and the council here, committee here, is that I want to progress as promptly as possible with these basketball hoops to save our costs on the wear and tear and maintenance, and better usage experiences of opening up that floor area for other sports. But I get a little bit nervous where this MOU might slow that challenge down. So it's just an indication there. I am very supportive of what we're doing, very supportive of continuing that funding of that from these two councils, and anything we can do as a governance and to direct the staff and officers to keep this trucking along and make this as prompt as possible, because I'm always concerned, especially we've got another election coming up, we're moving to another term, these things can get lost in the wayside into hard basket, and all the good work that you guys have done gets lost, and all the good work previous officers and committees done get lost. So I just want to re-emphasise, let's make this happen sooner than later. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Terry. I just want to follow up from Tim and go, we've had a lot of discussion about the hoops, and it's been long enough that I don't have a conflict anymore, but I can definitely tell you how heavy those damn things are. So they are fit for purpose for basketball. So basketball paid for those hoops as part of their induction into Saxton Stadium. So from a basketball perspective, what I hear Councillor Roldo rightfully saying, should they pay some? From a basketball perspective, I think it would be fair for them to say they already have paid. They have hoops. They work perfectly. They're just horrible to get across. Yep. But we've had Hardwood Technologies assessment on the floor. The recommendation is you should do something about this. So that floor is $1 million. That is the asset of Saxton Stadium. Nobody can play there if that floor is damaged. So increase the egress with those hoops from the roof, because there won't be a basketball hoop to walk past on the base. I think it's time that it just needs to get done. I feel for you guys moving those hoops, even with two of them.
Thank you, Brent, because that's something that when we were on the board, it was something that came up going back 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and here we are, 25. So I agree with what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah, it certainly has been around for a while as an issue. Yeah. All right. I think the staff have got a lead on that, and we just obviously need a little bit of more information, as Debbie indicated, on the wall strengths. So hopefully that can happen fairly soon. Okay, I think the 411 and is coming up in confidential, so the upfield renew. Anyhow, on 412, that was just a short piece there about some leaks that'll be attended, and a piece of information, basically the new section of landscaping's been done around where the archery area is, but probably not any questions on that. But any other comments or questions on the MOU? Debbie, was there anything else you wanted to cover on the MOU that you haven't already covered?
Just on the MOU, it was about the preferential of bookings. There wasn't anything about funding or preferential cheaper booking costs for the founding groups. The MOU just firmly states that it's about them getting priority booking and them sharing between them as those original groups. So in terms of if that would hold up the basketball discussion, I'm not. I guess we need more feedback from the groups themselves. But there's nothing in the MOU that states anything about money or fees.
Thank you.
Just that it's and the other thing I'll just comment with the floor is that the hardwood sand that would be done in 2029, say we kept on our condition assessment, it is that's quite pricey compared to the light condition sand, so that will probably come out at over 200,000 to do it. So you're sort of starting to get into that. The price of the hoops may be comparable, or so that's the floor itself will last probably 60, 70, 100. I think he's put in 40 to 60 years. A good floor like that will last. It's not that the floor is ever going to change. We've got to keep the conditioning assessments and the upkeep regular to prevent it deteriorating. And so the hoops, I guess, is speeding that process up, I would say, from that report.
Any questions on any of that? Joe, you have a question on that?
Sorry, not about the MOU. I was just wondering about 412 about the roof.
Oh, yeah, there's been some reports coming through that there is a few leaks coming into Saxton around the sports house. Actually, Lynn, you could maybe speak to some of this as well. So we've identified them and are just working with contractors to fix them.
So further to that, thank you for that clarification. Is that going to be doable within current maintenance budgets, or are we going to have to look at a different funding line there?
Yes, it's doable within the current budget. Basically, we've come up for our first cycle of maintenance renewals on the roof. So it's predominantly over the sports house section. And I think the work is almost complete, James. Is that right? And then thereafter, it just isolated leaks which have come to light with the recent weather events, but it's all within the current year's budgets.
Good, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, all happy with that. We'll move on to the proposed cross-country route on page 25. So Debbie, you're speaking to this.
Yeah, thank you. We've been approached by Athletics Tasman to consider putting in a dedicated cross-country route at Saxton Field. Cross-country is a pretty popular activity locally. With the location and calibre of Saxton Field, there is potential to host regional and national events should the course be approved or up to standard. If there was a set course, the proposal, which is included in the report, maps out the course itself. We've also added some photos just to make maybe more obvious of where the route goes. It doesn't require any infrastructure particularly or setups. It's more about kind of putting in a set course to stop a future infrastructure maybe coming across it, so that course would always remain. and formalising the route would probably prevent, you know, like planting a tree in the middle of the track or something if you know, if it was there permanently. There is some concern or unknown that if the proposed route would damage the edges of sports fields or grass areas, just because it's a winter sport. If you're getting a lot of runners tuning through, they tend to run on the grass stuff, not the paths. What that might look like. So that's probably where we're at with taking this to the committee, to those two recommendations to consider. One assumes the inclusion of the course in the development plan is a relatively low risk, and that would be a quicker, more direct process. The second one would require more investigation before reporting back to the committee, which might be chatting to the stakeholders, talking to the turf managers about what that might be. Yeah, so if the committee is familiar with the proposed route and potential issues, then option 1 is probably appropriate. Option 2 would ask for more investigation, including engaging with those relevant stakeholders.
Any questions of Debbie on this?
Yeah, thanks. It seems quite a good idea to me. You know, at the beginning, it's a great idea. But why, given that it's pretty close proximity to other sporting fixtures and could impact them, or, you know, where's that path going to go? Is it going to encroach on the sides of them? And when I looked through the report, I didn't quite get an understanding of, have other areas been looked at and excluded, or is that this is a place that's been used in the past and it's okay and we'll just move forward through it? Like, is there somewhere else in the park that could meet this need, or are we pretty sure that this is the space that it should be at?
I think this was a course they've been using unofficially, just for some local events, but to get it into a more notified course, it has to be a set length, so the 1K, 2K, 5K. So, and there's a couple of, my understanding is that there is elements to the cross-country course that need to be included, so they've kind of looked at where that could be done. So there's a little bit of hill, there's a ditch, you can't, well, trying to avoid crossing roadways, the traffic, that sort of thing. So that is sort of the best course to incorporate around that. Yeah, that's my understanding. That includes all the elements they need, I think. And I think there's things like the start line. You know, if you're going to have a big event, you need quite a bit of space to start them and then funnel them through. So it's like spaces like that, I guess, that those opportunities within the park and not crossing across something else would be part of that plan.
Yeah, I got the feeling that they had a pretty good look around, and this was kind of an area that worked, and it was quite a struggle to find another area, because you, like you say, you're not supposed to cross roads, you're not supposed to be on hard surfaces. One question I had was just around if the turf got damaged, how it would look on a televised game, but it turns out this is more of a winter thing, so it would probably be not such an issue in summer when there's cricket, for example, being televised. Yeah.
Just so long as we bear in mind that it doesn't prevent any future development of the areas nearby. Yeah, so long as that's taken into account, I'm supportive of this.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, I've also supported. I guess the one greatly impacted party is probably archery. So just having that conversation with archery, otherwise you might not want to do cross country while they're doing archery. But it seems to be peripherals anyway. But yeah, if you've got to consult and just have a heads up, I'd be having a conversation with archery. But I don't see that much of an impact on the other areas, to be fair.
Yeah, on the original discussion I had with Tasman, they currently work in with archery quite well anyway, because they have been using a little bit, but that would be, yeah, something that would need to be double checked.
So just reading the room, I would probably go with the first option then, if that was the case, because it's still subject to satisfactory engagement.
Any other thoughts on this from anyone?
If it's helpful, happy to move the first bit.
All right. Campbell?
You know, I'm supportive of it also. My question was just going to be, how often is it proposed to be, like, is it, I go and play football every Saturday pending the fields are open? Is it something they're planning to do once a week? Is it just biannual? Do we have kind of any idea how frequent the use would be of it?
That was part of the information that we're going to gather too. It would depend on, so if you're doing like a national or more evolved event, obviously that would be not that often, because you'd have to book those in, say, secondary school, South Island. And my understanding is, depending on the course, if it's up to a standard, what level you can have as well. But they wouldn't be that regular. It would be more locally that it would be used really regular. And how many people that involved, I think, just depends on the age group, the event. And that's probably a little bit of the unknown about how it would impact the grounds.
I could just add, we have had New Zealand Secondary School and South Island Secondary School champs here, but we had a bigger course that was out around Harakiki Green and used the periphery of the suburbs home field kind of thing. In fact, all of that block of fields there. So, and that there were requirements that came through for those that there needed to be a very wide chute for starting, and also at least 400 metres for everybody to sort themselves out. So I don't see that this course would serve that sort of purpose. It would basically be for local and regional events to take part in. There might be those in some schools, perhaps. There's Phil Cosley does have an interest in schools cross country, so there's certainly primary and intermediate and college events that would be held there, and maybe 1 or 2 club events as well a year. So it's probably about the limit. On that, I've got a mover for the first one and seconded Campbell. Okay. All those in, no further discussion, all those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
Happy to second. Happy to second.
No, who moved it? Sorry. Oh, you moved it and Tim seconded it. Yeah. So, is there any discussion on that, or anybody? I'll put it. So, Rob,
on a separate matter.
Oh, okay. Before we break, yep, go for it. Yeah, I'll put it. Then you want to cover it.
I'd just like to thank Debbie and Paul for the bringing this report to the.
Okay, so the